Okay, this is Steve Zeltzer with KPFA and KPFA WorkWeek Radio. We're here with the Apprentices, Full Circle, and John Peroulis. And we've got two guests. This is a rally today to defend public education that's being held in front of Oakland City Hall. The teachers here are preparing for a struggle to defend their conditions, their benefits. And not only is it going on here, it's going on in Los Angeles, where there's going to be a teachers' strike on Monday. So the struggle of teachers is spreading out throughout the country. First it was West Virginia, Arizona, and now coming to California. So that's what we're here about. And joining us today, some of the organizers of the rally are Judith Klinger, she's president of the Alameda Education Association, and Chaz Garcia, vice president of the Oakland Education Association. Welcome to KPFA WorkWeek Radio.
Thank you very much.
So Judith, why don't you talk about how this came about and what the issues are?
Sure, yeah. So near the end of October, a bunch of the unions, teachers' unions, along the 880 corridor decided to get together and make something happen. We wanted to do a rally to focus on Sacramento and tell Sacramento that they need to increase the funding for public schools in California. We are 41st in the nation in per pupil funding and dead last in terms of counselor-student ratio. I know in Alameda, we are currently the lowest paid teachers in all of Alameda County. We've challenged our school board to bring us up to county average. They've admitted that we're the lowest. They want to bring us up to county average, but it's very difficult to run a quality school district on the funding that Sacramento gives us. So everybody's joining in to try and get Sacramento to fund the schools better.
And there's a $13 billion surplus in Sacramento.
Correct, but one-time monies cannot fund an ongoing educational system. Sacramento has to reallocate ongoing monies.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks. And also joining us is Chaz Garcia, who's Vice President of the Oakland Education Association. Welcome to WorkWeek Radio.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So why don't you talk about the struggle the OEAs are facing and the issues that you want to be bringing up today, and also to people in the Bay Area and California.
Well, first I'd like to say that this is an amazing event, and it's long overdue that we've come together around the issues that are impacting all of us, and I'm happy that it's finally reached California and is really taking fold. But in Oakland, we've had a unique struggle for the 23 years I've been here. There have always been some issues with budget. We're being told that they can't fund the things that we need, which basically are resources for our students. We're asking to stop our teacher retention crisis. We lose a large percentage of teachers, 30% every year.
30% turnover in teachers.
Every year, because they cannot afford to live here. I'm currently a park coach, because obviously I'm not a released vice president, so I'm working. I was in the classroom for 20 years, and I'm currently a park coach. I work with teachers, some who have left because they couldn't afford to stay in Oakland. And that's a huge problem, because if we can't stabilize our teaching force, then we can't gain the momentum that we need to build relationships with the students, the communities, and support our students in the classrooms. So apart from figuring out how to support teachers in the classrooms, we need counselors. We have a ridiculous ratio, which skips my mind at the moment, of counselor to student ratio, and we're not providing the resources that they needed. Meanwhile, in the last 6 months, we have added central administration staffing. They've created new positions. There's a push to create a portfolio district, and
what is this portfolio district about?
It's the mesh.
They're proposing that in Los Angeles as well, the new superintendent?
They're attempting to basically make one platform where parents come to find resources for their children and meshing everything together with the charter and the public schools. And the problem with that is that they are very different. Charter schools are not regulated in the same way the public schools are. And then this portfolio system then is taking resources, additional resources from the public school system in order to promote the charter schools.
And there have been closure of public schools in Los Angeles. They're threatening to close a lot of public schools. Is that the same problem here in Oakland as far as the danger of closure of community public schools?
Absolutely. We have, they have said as much as up to 24 schools. And ultimately what they're talking about is during the 90s when there was money from the Gates Foundation, there were small schools that were started. I was a founding teacher of Esperanza, which is on the Stonehurst campus. It's an Oakland public school. But with that establishment, what we have had is one building that houses 2 administrators, 2 different programs. It's financially not sustainable.
So two separate bureaucracies.
Correct.
In the same school.
Correct. Which, if we could figure out how to, because we do have very different programs, so that's not to say they need to be, but what they want to do is put them back together, and they're not talking to the community in some cases the way that they should be. They announced that they're going to close Roots, which is a middle school, and these things are happening in East Oakland and in West Oakland, where all of the students are black and brown, and that's a problem because they're the most disenfranchised communities. I live down the street from Roots, and I know that my community, and they're doing the things that they're doing because they feel that they won't get the pushback. They attempted to close a school in the Hills a couple of years ago, but the parents up there didn't allow it because they were able to organize, and they have like the savvy and the novel, you know, they understand the system. So we're working with the families to support them and maintaining an option, because they're talking about busing these kids down to 98th, which there are gang implications for kids that people who don't live in the neighborhood don't know anything about.
And this idea of closing community schools, is that a threat to public education and what we want to do in protecting schools in our communities?
Absolutely, absolutely. We need to have resources in our communities for our students. So when you go into communities like West Oakland and Deep East Oakland, you start closing schools, you're taking away options for families. And when you're talking middle school, that's around the age where you start students, you know, that are feeling disconnected from school because they've had so many teachers turnover and they don't have teachers who are a reflection of who they are. Then they start feeling that school's not for them, and now you're closing the one school that maybe they felt a connection with, and we know that the dropout rates are highest among African American and Latino students. So in making these decisions, we're perpetuating that. And I know that's not the intent of our superintendent. I don't believe that's her intent. I do have respect for her, but I believe that she's being kind of misguided through some of the mentoring and the decisions that have been made.
Now, the NAACP, National Association, has called for a moratorium on new charters. Are you supporting that initiative of the NAACP?
Absolutely, absolutely. Our school board has kind of come around, even though many of the seats were funded by big money, which are backed by charters. However, they've just gone down to Sacramento, and the governor has approved the charter. That's happened in one case here where we were able to get the school board to vote no. So
that's under Prop 39?
Yes.
Where the State Board of Education can overrule
correct
communities. And
right.
So we're speaking with Chaz Garcia and Judith. Do you have the same kind of problems in Alameda, or you different kind of problems?
We have remarkably similar problems. People think of Oakland and Alameda as wildly different, but when it comes to public education, we take in every single child that needs a public education. And one of the things that is very much affecting education is increased needs for special education students who have IEPs, students who need extra things in order for them to access an education. And it's incredibly expensive because these kids have genuine needs, and the state of California and the federal government are not keeping up with the funding. So what we end up with is schools struggling to meet the needs of everybody. And
you have to sell candy in the schools to support the schools, and teachers have to take money out of their own pocket.
We sure do take money out of our own pockets.
To pay for pencils and supplies.
Absolutely.
I mean, in the richest state in the United States with all these billionaires.
Exactly right. And so, we've got kids. I teach ELD, English Language Development, which is also called ESL. And so, immigrants who are struggling, and several families living together in one apartment, and we need to be able to give those kids decent meals at school and teach them what it's like to live in America and access our social service programs. And all of this costs a lot of money, and it should cost money. Human beings are expensive. Children are expensive.
But aren't you spending money for the future? You're supporting the future of young people who need a great education so they can
contribute. It's the foundation of America. It's the foundation of a functioning democracy to have an educated populace. And Sacramento has got to change the way it funds so that we don't have to worry about school closures, so that we don't have to worry about we recycle everything in our classrooms. We reuse paper. shortages are abysmal, and it's ridiculous.
So this rally is, you hope, the start of a movement in Northern California
Absolutely.
to defend public education and make sure that the state is paying for a great public education for the students of California. That's your end goal, great public education.
Great public education, yes.
Fund it.
Okay, well, I want to thank you both for joining us on KPFA WorkWeek Radio, and we're happy to have you because we need to broadcast this not just here, but all over the country, all over the world.
Thank you.
It seems the right for public education is something that has to be struggled for today, so a great public education. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so very much.
KPFA WorkWeek Radio. And I want to thank you all. The rally here is starting. The Angry Tired Teachers are right now on the stage, and they are angry and tired about teaching and not getting paid enough and not being able to help the students that they have. So we're going to have some other guests as well. Why don't our guests come in and sit down here? Red for Ed. Does she want to come down? Yeah. So, okay, this is KPFA WorkWeek Radio. We're streaming at our website, and we want people to know that that we are trying to get the word out about the struggle for public education in California and in Oakland. When teachers, as the previous teachers say, that they're starving for funds in this rich state with many billionaires, that has to change. So I'm joined by Kristin Pursley, and you're president of the Adult School Leadership Union in Richmond. Welcome. No, you're the other one here. Okay, why don't you, is she here? You're vice president of Berkeley Federation of Teachers. No. You're, okay.
I'm from the Santa Rosa Teachers Association.
Okay, well, why don't you talk then? What's your name?
Tawny Johnson.
Tawny Johnson, okay,
So
I've got
that's
you
in
here.
Sonoma
Sorry.
County.
Okay, Sonoma County.
And just like those other teachers, this movement is going to affect every school in California.
And what's going on in Sonoma County with the schools?
Well, it's a very high-priced county to live in. We're not getting huge raises. We are getting minimal raises. Our health care is the most expensive in the state. So this funding system is not working for our students.
And, you know, when you talk about more money going out of your paycheck for health care, I mean, ends up being a pay cut of your salary? Is that what happens?
Every year, yes.
Every year. And what does that mean?
What does that mean? Well, only 4 years ago, we had no district contribution to our health benefits, and 60% of our members had opted out. So it was very difficult to actually attract teachers when you're paying out of your salary. So our salaries looked high, but the health benefits skyrocketed.
Well, there is supposed to be covered California. Is that what?
That works if you're a person with children.
I see.
Otherwise, it's more expensive. And other people, 60% of our members have health care somewhere else, or did. Now we're at 50-50.
I think that's what they want to do in West Virginia, get the teachers to get on their kids' health care benefits. That's one of the things that provoked them to go on strike.
Yeah,
they were asking the teachers to. Well, you know, the situation in the Bay Area with housing costs,
yes.
Is that making it impossible for teachers to live here?
It's getting close to being a really big problem for us, attracting new teachers and retaining them. We do the training for them. That's their first year teaching, and then they find some place that pays health benefits.
I mean, it's hard to believe in California that health benefits are not part of the package of teachers. How did it get to this state?
That happened quite a long time ago when it was felt that if you put it on the salary schedule, it would help your retirement, but you have to keep up with the health benefits cost, which didn't happen.
And also, teachers are not covered by Social Security.
That's right. It's considered double dipping. So if you were somebody who worked before you became a teacher, it can be a hardship, or if your husband dies before you, you don't get that benefit.
And also, there's the issue of charters. I know that there's a lot of money for charters, and public community schools are being closed, charters are being opened up, and in many charters, they're not even paying into the CalSTRS, your pension plan. Are you concerned about the undermining of the California teachers' pension plan?
Well, in Santa Rosa City Schools, where I come from, almost all of our charters are dependent charters, which means they are in our union, they get the same salary we get, so that's not such a big problem, but we keep bouncing up against that. I believe that we need to support public education for our students and our communities, whether we have our own personal children or not.
And the issue, is there an issue also of discrimination? Because it seems there's money for white schools or the rich, they have their kids taken care of. It's mostly working class, poor Latino. You have a large Latino population in Santa Rosa of workers in the community.
Well, we have kind of an interesting situation in Santa Rosa City Schools. We're actually two districts, an elementary district and a high school district. Our elementary district is above the state average in Latino, second language learners, foster children, and our high school is below the state average because we have a lot of feeder districts where those white elementary students go.
And what do you think about what's going on in California today with the massive surplus, $13 billion, all these billionaires, Gates, Zuckerberg, many billionaires seem to have a lot of money to invest in their own charter schools, and they're not really being taxed to pay for public community schools.
Every child in this state is going to be an adult here probably, and we need to invest in every kid, not just the kids who can make it to charter schools.
And it looks like the Oakland Education Association are going to be going out and strike. Also on Monday, the teachers in Los Angeles, 33,000 teachers are going on strike. What do you think should be done as far as building support for them in their struggle?
Well, we need parents to talk to our legislators about changing the way we fund schools and what our priorities are. Gavin Newsom just came out with his budget. If we want to get that passed, we need to push on the legislature.
And there's no depletion oil tax in California. I mean, that's another example of where money could go for education. And okay, well, what do you have to say to people of California about public education? And
this is just the beginning. And a lot of teachers hitting the streets and community members and parents who support them are going to make this change.
And what does Red for Ed mean?
Red for Ed comes from a strike in the 80s where the CEO's daughter ran over and killed somebody who was on the picket line. And so we're bleeding our schools dry. That's what Red for Ed is
this is
for.
An emergency situation. Then.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us on KPFA WorkWeek Radio. We've been talking with Tanya Johnson, who is president of the Santa Rosa Education Teachers Association. Okay, this is Steve Zeltzer with KPFA WorkWeek Radio, and we're streaming live this important teachers conference, teachers rally for public education. We're live at ilmlivestream.com, and people all over the world can watch this live. There's a teachers rally here, for public education, that's going on, and teachers from all over Northern California are coming here. The Oakland Education Association will probably be going on strike in the next few weeks, and in Los Angeles, 33,000 teachers are going to be going on strike on Monday. So there's a teachers strike wave hitting California. And one of the issues that has brought our guest here is the fight for adult education. In California, you have a large number of immigrants, and they should have the right to have public education so that they can be bilingual and they can contribute to our country, our state. So joining us is Kristin Persley. She's president of Adult School Teachers United. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Kristin, why don't you talk about your union and the issues that your union face as far as making sure that all people in California are bilingual and can contribute to our country?
Yeah, well, we're the union for the adult school that serves West Contra Costa, which is Richmond, San Pablo, El Cerrito, Hercules, Pinole. And the main issue that I'd say all adult schools face is that our funding was, the state pulled the rug out from under us in 2008. Big changes were made to the way we were funded. We no longer received ADA, which is the money that you get for attendance, and now our money comes from a block grant. And
that's what they'd like to do with Social Security, I think, in Medicare.
Yeah,
have a block
probably.
Grant, and then, then
they
can
like that.
Cut back and.
Yeah, because it's like this is the money you get, and that's it, you know. And
make do,
make do, exactly. And the amount of the grant has not been, well, for one thing, our funding went into free fall from 2008 to 2013. The school districts, were in crisis, and they were told, just take the money from your adult schools if you need to, take it all if you have to. So, and then in 2013, they sort of, stopped our fall and said, okay, if school districts, if you've survived this far without taking your adult school's money, you should keep your adult school at the whatever amount you were allowing them last year. For most of us, that was very reduced. And the amount of the block grant is based on what we were getting in 2013, and it has hardly been changed at all. And even in the budget that just came out that has so much money for education, there's very tiny increase for adult ed. It doesn't restore us to what we had before 2008. Even.
And adult education, for those who don't know, what is it all about?
Well, adult education is, as you said, a lot of it is English as a second language for immigrants. And of course, California has a huge immigrant population, so it's very important. It also provides a high school diploma for people who want to go back to school after maybe they dropped out of high school in high school and didn't have enough credits, and they need to make up the credits. And that's another really important thing we do. We also have career tech education, which is training people for careers. Another thing that we do that's very important is for low fee, we provide cultural classes like art and dance and music that are there for the whole community. So anyway, that's kind of what we do. But sort of the core of what we do is English as a second language, high school diploma, GED, which is high school equivalency, adult basic ed, which is actually the equivalent of an elementary school education for an adult. So really what we're doing is we're sort of shoring up what the school system with helping people who either weren't here when they were kids and need English and need education, or didn't, for whatever reason, get the education they needed when they were children in school.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for joining us. And
thank you.
I think that immigrants who are coming to this country should have the right to get an education, to really contribute to this country, to contribute to their family and their lives. And the work that you do in adult education is critical. So I hope that you're properly funded. You should be properly funded so we all can be bilingual. So thanks for joining us on KPFA WorkWeek Radio. Kristin.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And also joining us is Andy from the Angry Tired Teachers.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
I can't hear that much in this headphone. Should I try that
You
one?
want to try? You
try that
can
one
move over here.
Okay,
That's fine.
There,
Yeah,
huh?
that's right.
Hey, Steve. Good to see you
Good
again,
to
buddy.
see
Man,
you.
It's been a while. Man, we did the Labor Fest.
That's right. We have a Labor Fest, laborfest.net, every July to commemorate the San Francisco general strike. And, of course, culture and music is part of our struggle. And Andy and his band, the Angry Tired Teachers, are getting the story out in a popular way about what issue teachers face. Now, when I first saw you, it was in Hayward.
Yeah, that was in 206, believe it or not.
206.
That's 13 years ago, they tell me. I can't believe it.
You were performing, and also in Hayward when you were teaching there, they had a YouTube channel. What was that all about? How did these teachers get that together?
Yeah, there's a guy named Robert McCarthy from school in Hayward. I'm not sure, I can't remember what school he was from. And yeah, they did a great job of doing video documentary of the strike, and they did a daily channel, their own channel. So we didn't even rely on the local media to cover what was going on. We just did he did his own thing with the video, and they did a thing called The Truth. And that's something that our listeners know that's something very rare these days.
That's something hard to find.
Yeah, it's hard to find,
truth.
man.
Every day is harder and harder to find.
Oh my God, yeah, and that's why we need education. There's all this, you know, the oppressed, of course, and that's why we need education. It's money well spent, you know. This bullshit wall, you know, that's just bullshit.
Well, they want to spend $5 billion on a wall, and the classrooms are falling apart. Teachers can't survive.
Yeah, man.
They have to beg for pencils and paper. I mean, teachers are taking that money out of their own pockets, and they're going to spend $5 billion on a wall.
I've been teaching almost 25 years at Hayward High School, and I have the same chairs I did. That's probably been there since the 1950s, and desks that just, you know,
and this is the richest state in the United States.
Yeah, that's
we have a $13 billion surplus, as I was saying earlier.
Yeah, and now
why are our schools falling apart?
And that's why my band's here to support Oakland, because we know exactly how it feels to be the lowest paid teachers in the Bay Area, because that's what we were back in 2006, the Hayward Unified School District. We had that title, the lowest paid, and I guess Oakland now is the lowest paid in the whole Bay Area.
And you sing about it.
Yeah, now we're singing for Oakland.
Teachers.
Yeah,
How did that name come about?
Yeah, well, you know, it started where we were just a party band for the staff. So we play at the Christmas party and little TGI Fridays to kind of let our hair out, you know, for teachers kind of get together. It's nice, you know, that teachers. It's a struggle to teach, and now with the cell phones and all this distraction of that and video games, I think it's a really hard area to teach, and so it's good for teachers to let loose, and the band played for parties, and then our district wasn't giving us just the COLA raise. We hadn't had a raise in 5 years. Yeah, cost of living. Yeah, cost of living raise. And then we saw the superintendent getting these big raises, like 10% raises and stuff. And just like Mike Pence and that crew,
they're
man, getting their raises.
Work, you know, they're managers. So they need.
Yeah, it's just. And so the band, we changed our lyrics. We were making fun of the administrators as teachers and making fun of the students, and then we changed our lyrics to now start. The cause of getting just the cost of living raise, just a simple cost of living raise is all we were asking at that time. Because again, it wasn't like 5 years we didn't have a raise, and the band played right outside the district office. We played at City Hall, and they wouldn't budge. And
also, you do artwork, your murals.
So maybe they like the music, but I'm thinking, you know, they say, oh man, there's our rock music, you know, this band out, and then the union loved us. So then they said we gotta roll up the troops. So they got a flatbed truck, and we did this tour of like all the schools in our district. So we would go on this flatbed truck in the morning, because we did strike because they wouldn't settle, and we thought, man, we would just rally, and
traveling angry tired teachers band on the flatbed truck.
Yeah, the flatbed truck. Yeah, and then like the local radio stations like KFOG radio heard us, and they go, hey, we got to have these guys on the show, because it was like we were on tour. You know, we were touring these schools.
It was a tour.
Yeah, it was happening. So we made it very popular to fight for education through rock and roll.
How do you find out about your band? Go to Angry Tired Teachers? Or?
Yeah, through through the media. So the TV cameras, you know, showed us like what is going on. This rock and roll band, a reggae band playing, and then doing tours of the schools, and then the CTA kind of took notice of us, and then we started playing. We played down in LA when there was a huge budget cuts. I can't remember what year that was. I guess that was about 4 or 5 years after the strike that we had.
And you're here today.
Yeah, and then
at this rally.
Yeah,
it goes on.
So I think we've been playing over like, I think it's been about about 25 years. This band.
Great.
And we're
you're keeping up the struggle.
Yeah, we're keeping the struggle. And we're trying to keep it current, and we just played the song, the Lucky song, that it's all up all night to get lucky, but we just played we're up all night grading papers.
That's so, the way it is.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well,
I was just writing that last night. I was up all night writing lyrics. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Steve.
And Andy,
great to see you, man.
It's beautiful to see you and listening to your music. So.
All right, yeah. We'll play a song if you want. Later, if you're on the program, we can play it. We can close with a song if you guys.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, man.
Very good.
Take
care.
Cheers. In solidarity.
Great.
All right. Cheers.
And check out the Angry Tired Teachers. And
yeah, we have a CD out. I think we're just about out of CDs, but if you Google "Angry Tired Teachers," I think we're sold through CD Baby, and you can support our band, because we don't make much money at all at these rallies. So, and if you'd like to hear some teacher protest music, such as we did today, yeah, "Angry Tired Teachers."
We got to get it worldwide.
And
so
yeah, and we'll have to print some more if you guys buy them out there. So.
Okay, thanks.
All right, cheers.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Take care.
Peace.
And also we have another guest joining us. Jody London, Vice President of the Oakland School Board. Welcome to KPFA WorkWeek Radio, Jody. So thanks for coming on. And
thank you.
What's going on here today?
We're here at a rally to highlight the need for full and fair funding for our public schools here in California. It's really, in my mind, it's time that California regained the high ground and regained our position as one of the top per pupil funders of education in our country. And one of the reasons that I'm not wearing red is that I've been out on a bike ride all morning for a group called Ride for a Reason. And the last Saturday in April, we're going to have hundreds of people riding their bicycles from Oakland to Sacramento to highlight the need for full and fair funding for our public schools.
Well, California seems to have a lot of billionaires. There's a lot of wealth, and some of these billionaires want to open up their own schools.
Yes, and we have a lot of charter schools in Oakland.
The Fisher
That's one
family,
of the issues.
the Kidd Foundation, the Gulen schools. I mean, how many charters are there in Oakland?
In Oakland, we have, I believe we have 42 charters. 35 are authorized by the district, and 7 are authorized by the county or the state, because California's charter law allows a charter operator to appeal if it doesn't like the decision that it gets from the school district.
And what does the board think about that? The fact that if the board rejects a charter application, they can go then to the state and get approved by the State Board of Education?
We're actually getting ready to update our legislative platform, and one of the items in there is that we'd like to change the way the appeal process works in California, so that you can only appeal a school district's decision if there was some technical deficiency, but not because you don't like the answer.
And one of the issues that has been coming up is that while community public schools are being closed or lack the funding, new schools are being opened up. Do you find that a contradiction when you have a community public school closed and then another charter school opens up?
It's definitely a challenge, and it's definitely one of the things that we're working to get a handle on. We are working very closely with our legislative delegation in Sacramento. We're really hoping that they will support our call for there to be a pause with any new charter schools.
So a cap? Are you supporting the NAACP national resolution for a moratorium on charters?
We haven't talked specifically about a cap.
They have one in Massachusetts.
I personally might support that, but I can't say that the district does. But I do know that we're definitely going to be considering on the 23rd of January an update to our legislative platform that would be much more aggressive around charter schools, now that we've had a change of administration in Sacramento.
Tony Thurmond, who was fought by the charters people, they spent a lot of money, unlimited amount of money.
And I've talked quite a bit with Superintendent Thurmond about this.
And one of the issues that is important as well is the charter schools have said they didn't have to comply with the Brown Act. They didn't have to comply with any regulation. And the Attorney General, Xavier Becerra, has just issued another opinion saying that they have to comply with the Brown Act. They have to comply with the conflict of interest. And in Oakland, you've had some problems here with American Indian School. Waste of money, fraud. Is there a lot of fraud and corruption? Oh wait, here. Let's get this before we go. Here they are marching in. Here's some. Let's go to that.
Yeah, they're going to march.
Here they are. WTF? Where's the funding? That's what they want to know.
It's really great, Steve, to see so many people coming out in support of public schools
today. So here's
today.
some students and teachers marching into the rally here. Okay, here they are. So here they are coming into the rally.
One of the things that I'm really excited about with this rally is that it's really highlighting the need that as a society, as a country, we don't value the profession of educator, right? We award higher status and salaries to many other professions in our society.
Is that? Why are teachers such a low priority? I mean, in Finland and other countries, the teachers are,
I think it's a national issue. I think it's if you look across the country, we've seen this, and there's data around how much people with equivalent education were paid in the 70s versus now.
Here they come. They're coming right here. They're coming in our direction, and you can watch it live on our streaming channel, ilmlivestream.com. It's an international labor media movement, and these teachers are pretty angry, and the students as well. The conditions in the schools and the lack of funding. I mean, this is the richest state. There's a lot of construction in Oakland. Here we go, ready to strike. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, here they come in.
Great.
Oh. Okay. I guess this is the march. They march from the amphitheater on the lake.
Oh, great.
All the way here. The OEA marched, and so they had a rally here. They're coming in now, Melrose Academy, and there's a report that the Oakland charters are siphoning off money to public schools.
That's in the public interest report, and they estimate that it's $57 million a year. There are some folks who dispute the study and the findings of the study, but even if it's off by 20 or 30%, that's still a significant amount.
That bothers you? Does that bother you?
I've been on record for a long time as saying I wouldn't approve any new charters in Oakland, right? But we do have to figure out how to work with the charters that we have here. I'm not saying charters are going to go away.
Well,
I think that's not realistic.
The principle of public money going to privately run schools, do you accept that, or you believe that because when you have a privately run school getting public money?
There may be ways that the legislature can change how those boards run. I think the Open Meetings Act that we just talked about is a good start.
You think the Attorney General Xavier Becerra should send a letter to every charter school in California that they have to abide by the Brown Act and these other rules, or else they'll be lose their contract to operate?
That's certainly something that he could choose to do. I believe that when we authorize charters, do require them to comply with the Brown Act. So we, as an authorizer, put that into our conditions, but not every
I've been to a lot of school board meetings, and unfortunately, they spent a lot of time with charters, approving this charter, approving that charter.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like all the time is spent, with charters, not education. It's what are you going to get another charter? That's
definitely
a real issue.
An issue.
Yeah.
So, here's my colleague, Roseanne Torres.
Okay, well, maybe she can join us. Do you want to join us?
Are you here to be interviewed, Rosie?
Okay, why don't you sit over there? She can stay there.
And I have to leave.
Oh, you have to leave? Okay, she can sit here then. Okay, good.
I'm going to take. Okay. I do want to highlight before I go, Steve, that the last Saturday in April is going to be the Ride for a Reason. Folks are going to be riding from Oakland on their bikes to Sacramento to highlight the need for full and fair funding for public schools. We'd love to have support along the way. Check it out online.
Okay, very good.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Great. Okay.
Here you go,
good.
Rosie. Sit here.
Okay, you can sit here, Rosie. And we're with Rosie Torres, District 5 of the Oakland Unified School District. Welcome to KPFA WorkWeek Radio, KPFA. So, Rosie, why don't you talk about why you're here today? What's going on here today?
Sure. So why I'm here today is we have some very basic facts that are driven by dollars. We're 44th in the nation for spending. Prop 13 became the decimation of our funding. We used to be in the top 5. The other issue is we're the 5th largest economy. So how can we be the 5th largest economy in the world, and yet we're 44th in the nation? We just jumped over Mississippi. How large is the budget of Mississippi compared to California?
How could that be? Why
Disinvesting in black and brown children and in poverty, people stricken with poverty, is really the issue. And Prop 13, which affects corporations, Prop 13 was about demographers telling people in power in the legislature of California and Sacramento who will be producing more children and larger families, such that when you get to 2000, the majority of your kids will be, guess what, Latino and black. 6 million children, 52% are Latino. So back then, the legislature, which didn't look like me or Miss Ocasio in the Congress or any of the Muslim women who just got elected, those men said, we're not going to invest with our property tax to put kids through school that don't look like our children.
But that's benefited the corporations.
And the corporations benefited. So reforming corporations, and this just kills me. The other day at the swearing-in ceremonies in Sacramento on Monday, I turned on my TV in the hotel because I don't own a TV, and I see Disneyland is raising its prices for parking and admission. Disneyland is unattainable for most lower and middle income families. They pay no property tax in Anaheim, and that city is in bankruptcy. So Disneyland should pay their fair taxes.
Well, now in California, you have the 2/3 supermajority of the Democrats in the legislature. You have a Democratic governor. You have a Democratic
got the power.
Board of Education, Tony Thurmond.
Yes.
They could pass.
My friend,
they could
Tony
pass a
Thurmond.
depletion oil tax, couldn't they? I mean, they don't need to go to a ballot. They could pass a depletion oil tax to tax the oil companies. I mean, there are a lot of things
There's
they
a
could do
lot
with
of
that.
things,
Why
but
are they
let's
going to
go
do
right
it?
to the heart of Prop 13 as a racist tactic to not fund children who are black and browns education.
Well, also,
and so let's go
putting
right to that.
all the money that's going to jails and prisons.
That's
I mean,
right.
they always
Private
have more
prisons.
money.
Tony
more money
Thurmond
for
passed
prison.
a tax on private prisons. That's where you send our black and brown children when they don't get a
Do you think they should
quality
be allowed?
public education.
You think private prison should be allowed?
Absolutely not. I'm a criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor. All I saw in courtrooms from Auburn to Marysville to Woodland to San Luis Obispo was they round up the black and brown people and they're being fined and they're doing jail time and they're constantly on probation. They're violated right before probation ends. So I've seen it from the inside of courtrooms. Why? What happens when you don't get an education?
Well, one of the questions I asked, there seems to be American Indian School in Oakland.
Yes,
There's
which is a
corruption.
problem. There's a problem
these
with a school like
CEOs,
that.
And I mean, Attorney General Xavier Becerra,
Yes.
do you think he should set up a special task force to go
Absolutely.
after the corruption in these charter schools?
It's a great segue because I recently spoke with someone who has statistics on teachers who are credentialed in Oakland, and the charter schools and Go Public Schools, the chameleon of all chameleons, now has parents sitting at our board meetings in yellow shirts paying them a stipend to sit there and act like they're for public schools that
So
are
in other
charter.
words, our tax money
Yeah.
is going to
Our
pay
tax money is
charter
going-
advocates. You think
Yes,
that's legal?
that should not be legal. Javier Becerra, another friend, is right on the money in the fact that American Indian has very few certified teachers. These are people on special certification, and they can't keep their teachers because they don't pay them, and they have no
And
pension,
this is the
no protections.
deprofessionalizing of education.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
and
got
it
it.
really-
So the black and brown children or the newcomers who speak no English from around the world get people who don't even have full credentials at places like American Indian, probably places like the other
And
charter schools
do
in
you
Oakland.
think that Xavier Becerra should really start setting up a special unit to go after the corruption?
And I think he
the
will with Tony
financial
Thurmond
conflicts of
because
interest?
Tony
Yeah.
gets it. Billionaires came after Tony Thurmond. Meanwhile, Marshall Tuck did not have the qualifications to lead the state's 6 million children. But he sure spent $130 million.
But he represents the billionaires. They think they should be running the
Oh,
schools.
the billionaires.
I interviewed
Here's
Tuck.
the reason.
I interviewed Tuck. He said,
Yep.
he said it's okay if billionaires run the education
Oh,
system.
yeah.
He's
Well, you know
open
why?
about
Because
that.
getting on the government teat in the world, this is what's happening. They're privatizing nations around the country. They're trying to privatize all education for charters in Mexico, India, in
So it's a
African
worldwide
nations.
issue,
This is a
privatization,
worldwide
worldwide
issue
issue.
of trillions of dollars. The charters have said that's always going to be there in the government budget. Let's get a piece of that
they
with
want that
software
public money.
and,
They want that
and,
public
and
money.
computers and even the buildings. The construction for private charters comes from the government.
That's right.
Jerry
And
Brown
a lot of that is
was for
non-union,
charter.
too, so
Let's
the
hope
workers
Gavin
have-
Newsom
Oh,
is better than Jerry Brown.
Well, I think people have to demand that they have decent public education and
Yes.
these corrupt schools being
and let's
prosecuted.
be real about the prosperity of California, educating all the children regardless
We
of
should
zip
have the
code,
greatest
poverty.
education system in
Yes.
the world, okay? I
Yes.
agree. Okay, well,
I
thank you
love
for
it.
joining us.
Thank you so much
and
for
let's
having
be in
me.
touch. Okay, thank you very much. And we've been talking with Rosie Torres. She's with District Zeltzer with KPFA WorkWeek Radio. We're broadcasting live at ILM Live, International Labor Media Livestream.com. So people in this country, around the world, and this is a worldwide issue. The right to a public education. You think you have to have a movement to have the right to public education? We do, obviously, and that's why you're here. So joining us is Elena Monse, who's with OUSD, a kindergarten teacher. Welcome to KPFA WorkWeek Radio.
Thank you.
So why don't you talk about why you're here today, what issues you're addressing, and what
Yes.
you want to see happen.
Now I need to pull up my slide. So I've been teaching in Oakland Unified for 8 years now. And
What do you teach?
I teach kindergarten.
Okay.
All 8 years. And this is not the first time we've had to gather as a staff, as a union, to ask the administration to fund the schools in the way that they're able to.
And what are your conditions at the school as a kindergarten teacher?
So in Oakland Unified, it's an interesting, diverse district. There's so many schools, 400 schools approximately, serving thousands of students. And it's amazing how much the schools, based on where they're located, are better funded or less well funded because PTAs and parent donations can compensate a lot for missing services. So right now, basically in more well-affluent areas, parents are subsidizing the schools, and so we call them the Hill schools, tend to be, they have all their enrichment. They have all the textbooks they need. They have a campus that's relatively new and functional.
So we're talking about a two-tier system.
Yes.
In the hills, great schools.
And then the flatlands.
In the flatlands,
where
completely different.
They might not have consistent teachers. There's a lot more turnover. They might not have all the supplies they need. They might not have as much enrichment. They might not have a garden class. They might not have an art class. They might not have PE as frequently.
Does it bother you that these are mostly African American Latino kids, and they're the ones that are suffering,
It
and
does
they really
tend to be
need
more students of
they
color.
should be getting
The
the most because of.
To help compensate for equity.
I mean, that must be pretty frustrating as a teacher.
It can be very discouraging, and that's part of why right now we have 3 simple demands. Smaller class sizes across the board because it's so effective. It's proven a smaller class size meets more student needs. 2, we want caseloads similarly to be smaller for special ed, for just all teachers, counselors, school psychologists, all of them are overburdened with too many students and not enough hours.
And these are the students that need counselors.
That need
I mean, the
these
raids,
supports.
has that affected the raids, the ICE, and these attacks on immigrants? Has that affected your students
I
at all?
don't have personal knowledge of the ICE raids. I just know that when students have trauma, it's not always...
The trauma makes it very difficult to have an education.
Exactly.
When you're worried about your family being picked
And
up,
your
your
safety.
parents, and that's a horrible nightmare for young students in kindergarten.
And then similarly, to meet that demand of these students who have so high needs and they're have so much potential, we need quality teacher retention. What keeps people in their job, quality people in their job, is having a salary that they can afford the cost of living in the Bay Area, which is astronomical, as I'm sure you're aware of. So teacher retention is a problem in Oakland Unified. And Oakland Unified is not compensating teachers at just the basic cost of living if you compare us to other districts of our same size. So we're losing great quality teachers to go to other districts that pay better.
Are you concerned about the fact that under Prop 39 and the charter law that they're opening up new charter schools at the same time that they're closing community public schools?
Yes,
Does that bother you?
Because the issue with charter schools is not that they're not a great idea on paper. They are. Wouldn't we all love to have a curriculum that's catered to our child's needs? The challenge is that charter schools are allowed to selectively admit students.
So
charter
pick,
schools cherry pick.
and they don't have to take special ed students and others. So isn't that discriminatory? Isn't that illegal?
Well, for public education, it would seem so. And it's just frustrating when working at a public school, we have all the accountability, and yet we're losing out on resources that are being divided in a way that's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable.
So you're likely going to be going on strike. What should people do when you do go on strike? Should they join you on the...
That's a great question. So right now, we're organizing, and what we really need is more community support and awareness. We really need the community to understand this is not a strike for greedy teachers, which I have heard said. Like, oh, the teachers are just greedy, they want more pay. No, the strike is because funding in California for public education is under attack. Look at our current president's administration.
It just passed Mississippi. So we're a little ahead of Mississippi now.
Right.
For this billionaire state.
Right. Look at their agenda in the national agenda for education. It is to privatize. And if you fundamentally believe that all students should have a fair chance at education, privatization doesn't make sense. If you believe in public education should be for everyone, then you would go on strike, and you would want community support to realize this is not about just money. It's about students having the resources they need to be successful.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for joining us on KPFA WorkWeek Radio, and we have the Apprentices here, and KPFA wants to cover this. We should be covering it. It's a people's issue.
Yes.
Future of our humanity, of our children. If we can't educate our children, we're not going to have much of a future. So thanks for joining us on KPFA WorkWeek Radio.
Keep getting the word out.
Okay, we will do that. Okay, so we're here, and we have Tim Marshall, Democratic Socialists of America. Welcome, Tim.
Hi, thank you.
So you want to put on your headphones?
Okay.
So, Tim, are you a teacher?
I am a teacher. I'm in my 22nd year of being an Oakland education member, Oakland OEA, and taught in Oakland public schools.
And this is a rally of Northern California. There are thousands of people here from all over Northern California. This attack on public education and the growth of charters, what do you see as a solution? Because California is a rich state. You've got a lot of billionaires right here in the Bay Area, in San Francisco and Oakland, yet you're starving for funds for public schools. What's going on?
Well, that's what's going on.
Is that capitalism?
That's capitalism, and I have basically the Robin Hood theory. We're going to take from them and give to the people that need it. We're going to be demanding money from the state of California, which is a very rich state, one of the fifth largest economy in the world, and we're 43rd in education funding in the United States, and that's a disparity that we can no longer tolerate. We in the DSA and we in the OEA are fighting for equal and more reasonable redistribution of that money that's held by the billionaires. Meanwhile, the billionaires are using their leverage and their power and their money to promote this privatization, the charterization of our unified school districts, to promote undemocratic, corporately
You think charter should be illegal?
I'm not sure that I think charters should be illegal, but I definitely think charters should be held accountable.
Should they get public money?
Well,
I mean, the issue is, why should public money be going to run private schools? I mean, isn't that part of privatization?
It is part of privatization. It's part of a national strategy. You see it with the VA. You see it with all kinds of different government agencies where the rich are trying to get in and make money off of things that had previously been
Do you think
held
that they
by the
should
public.
repeal the charter law in California that funds charter schools?
I think the charter laws were written by the charter school industry.
That's true. That's true. In fact, Prop 39 was written by Reed Hastings, billionaire who owns Netflix. He wrote it, and unfortunately, it was supported by the California faculty, California Federation of Teachers and CTA. Why can you explain that the teacher unions supported Prop 39?
I can't explain that. I will tell you
they
that
must have lawyers that know what it was.
I think there's some people who are seriously interested in good education that think that charters are an answer. I don't think the charter school industry agrees with that. I think the charter school industry wants to privatize and make billions off of our students and deliver a separate and unequal style of education
and they're
in
closing
the state of California.
public community schools in Oakland and opening up charter schools. What do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's just clear, and they've done it in Oakland for some years now. We resisted when the Oakland Unified School District tried to do it about 15 years ago. Their initial fight was led by the Oakland Unified School District to charterize their own schools. They had a plan to do that, and the school board is basically a bought and sold entity of the charter school lobby. Go Public Schools, which is a astroturfing organization.
And they're in West Contra Costa County. They're trying to close the Crespi School.
And they
have an agenda, well-funded agenda, paid for by billionaires.
Well, just to give you an example, in my local school district board, in the last election, the candidate that was backed by Go Public Schools got a $100,000 donation. So from billionaire Bloomberg in New York, who they're getting their fingers into everything.
They're trying to help education. They're trying to help education.
Altruistic.
Now, there's financial conflicts of interest. We have Xavier Becerra as the Attorney General. You think he should send a letter to every charter school? You have to follow the Brown Act and all these laws?
I definitely
because they violate, apparently, all the process, transparency laws, and they're just flagrantly out of you think they should be prosecuted?
I think they should be prosecuted, investigated, and held accountable. Charters revoked if they're not in compliance with Ed Code. And we see it all the time here in Oakland. I think the previous speaker was just talking about how they don't feel the same obligation that we do to take special ed students, and they dump special ed students back into the Oakland Unified School District. Public schools end up the same way you'd get kicked out of Kaiser and sent to Highland Hospital. It's not fair to us. The monies are not adequate. For the needs.
You're going to be going on strike likely with the Los Angeles UTLA. What can people do to support the strike?
What can people do in Oakland? In Oakland, you got to get out there on the picket lines. Got to get people. I mean, we're just overwhelmed with the support today. I see parents and students. I see neighbors and friends of mine that are out today. Do that. Let the school board know that you will not have it to have any more schools closed in Flatlands of Oakland, and let them know that you support a living wage for teachers and you support our strike.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us on KPFA WorkWeek Radio, and we hope you're successful in your struggle for it's the future of education, the future of the people in this country.
Right on.
Thanks for joining us on KPFA WorkWeek Radio. So we have Nancy Skinner, who's joining us, and you're supporting this rally.
Yes,
Nancy,
I am.
why have you come here? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Senator Nancy
State Senator, welcome to KPFA WorkWeek Radio. And it seems there are a lot of people out here. People are
Yes,
concerned
there
about
are.
what's going on in education in California. What are you saying to them? And we have a California legislature. The majority of the legislature now are Democrats, 2/3 supermajority. We have a surplus of $13 billion. And seems we don't have enough money for the schools, and a charter crisis.
There's definitely a charter crisis, and if we look at the situation that our Oakland Unified School District is in, that the unfortunately the kind of abandonment of our public schools, and by some parents who had good motivations, and the growth of charters has reduced the enrollment in our Oakland public schools, which of course the state funds schools based on per daily enrollment. So when enrollment drops, then it really affects the ability for Oakland Unified School District to support their children in the way that all of us want.
So the
we both
charters
have to
cherry pick and
confront
they pick the students in?
well, they, whether cherry picking or not, just their existence removes students from our public schools, which removes the funding to our public schools. So that's something that we have to confront, and I have supported the various efforts to basically put a limit and a stop on charters in OUSD, at least, so
Are you
that
for
we
a statewide cap? I know in Massachusetts
yes,
there's a statewide
I'm supporting what our new superintendent of public instruction, Tony Thurmond, has been advocating for a cap, and I back what he is advocating. Now, when it comes to statewide funding for our schools, it has gone up. We have done better, but it is not adequate. And when we look at, we're already giving at least 50% of California's general fund to our K-12 education. And a part of the problem, it's not the only problem, but we're still stymied by Prop 13.
But couldn't you pass, like, for example, there's a depletion oil tax you could pass? And
Well, many
California
people
doesn't
talk
tax
about
oil.
that, but the amount of money that would bring it in, it's not bad, and I've supported it each time that it's come before the legislature and even been a co-author, but it does not do anything compared to our fixing Prop 13. Fixing Prop 13 is the biggest source of bucks to fund our schools. And when you look at the corporate windfall, the corporate tax windfall that 45 that the current Washington administration gave to California corporations, I'll tell you how much money California corporations gained from that tax cut last year, $57 billion. So if we can just capture even a half of that, our schools would be completely
So that's going to be on the ballot in November?
Yes, of 2020.
So people can vote on that.
Correct.
Now,
and there will be other measures the legislature will consider too.
Now, in 1992, the charter school law passed in California that allowed public money to go to privately run charter schools.
Yes.
And then in 2002, you had Prop 39, which allows co-location. It allows the field. It removes the Field Act protection for students. It's really, and allows co-location. You have some times in Independence High and East Alum Rock Park, 3 charters in one public high school. Are you for the repeal of the Charter School Act?
Well, what I'm looking at for Oakland Unified School District is that given their financial difficulty, and they're looking at the need potentially to close some schools, which is quite tragic, but if they do so, that we definitely enact something so that those schools that are closed do not get turned over to charters for charters to operate them. Absolutely not. Would be
so you're against closing community public schools for charters?
For charters, completely.
But the principle of allowing public money to go to privately run schools, which is the charter school.
I did not support either of those initiatives.
Oh, you didn't? You were opposed to both of those?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I did not vote for them, and I was publicly opposed to them. Now, whether the voters are willing to overturn them, we'd have to see.
Now, the other thing is the growing corruption scandal in charter schools. You have the American Indian School in Oakland, where money's being stolen really from the kids by executives and cronies, and you have Ref Rodriguez in Los Angeles.
Well, and we saw that school got closed.
Yeah, but I mean, the money disappears. And also land, property, there's a property grab. Charter schools are taking over land.
Well,
and
that's
then
why I spoke specifically to the fact that if OUSD, due to their financial crisis, has to close any facilities, that we have got to step in and prevent charters from.
Well, there was a bill that passed was it 1402 or something, that said that if there's a financial crisis, the legislature or the state will provide money, but then they have to be administered by the state, and they have to turn over their public property to organizations you have to sell.
Yes, which is public property.
Well, why should that happen?
But that would not be a charter school.
Yeah, but why should you be privatizing public land when we have a surplus of $12 billion?
That's why it doesn't say it would be turned over to private operators.
But it would be sold.
It says public agencies would have first right.
Well, there's a issue of developers who are supporting charters. Chamberlain, developer in West Contra Costa, who are actually pushing charters because they want that land. There's kind of a land grab going on in Oakland, West Contra Costa. These developers want that land in a way, they say it's a way of getting...
If OUSD gets to the point where they feel they must close some schools in order to deal with we will absolutely, I will be either enacting or supporting legislation to prevent that land or that facility from being able to be used by a charter.
And you could pass that. The legislature could pass that. Is there a bill for that?
We'll see.
Well, are you going to introduce a bill?
In other words, what did I just say?
We'll see. Well, I mean, if there's a bill that you introduce, then people can support that bill.
Of course, but you asked me, will it pass? I can't guarantee that my colleagues would support it. Well, I certainly would work hard to get it passed.
Yeah, there's a lot more education now about charters because of the crisis in California with the charters, and that's the reason Tony Thurmond won, because people now worry the charters are going to take over public education. And it looks like a lot of them have taken over in Oakland with the number of charters that they have in Oakland. So are you optimistic you're going to be successful in this struggle to protect public schools?
As I said, we will. I'm in for the fight, and we'll do our best.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for joining us on KPFA WorkWeek Radio. And who you are?
I'm Matt Meyer. I'm a teacher in Berkeley and the vice president of the Berkeley Federation of Teachers.
Welcome to KPFA WorkWeek Radio, and thanks for joining us. Now, Matt, what's going on? You're at a rally. There are thousands of people here from all over Northern California. It looks like this may have been the first rally in a long time for public education.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge deal. There's people from all over Alameda County, teachers and classified staff coming from outside of Alameda County to basically make the same demand, which is our schools, our public schools, need more funding. They need more funding from the state. We need to invest in public education, and this is a cornerstone of our democracy. This is who we are. This is our value system, and we have to put pressure to show that the money needs to go where our values are, and that is educating our students. And
there's also the issue of charters. They're opening up charters and closing down public community schools. What's your concern about that?
In Berkeley, we haven't really felt that in the same way that Oakland and LA have felt that, but it's a concern, right? Because it is a threat to what we consider the public commons. These are oftentimes privately run with public money, and
do you buy that allowing public money to go to private run schools? You think that should be allowed in California?
I think that I think that there is a lot of problems, and we see this happen. Many of these schools have a lot of corruption, and that's because there's very little oversight. And we want to, all kids deserve a great education. We believe that the public school system provides that great education, and we need to invest in our public schools to be able to provide that. And what happens with charter schools and the lack of oversight is that, we have a lot of schools where no one can tell you actually what's going on. And
they're not complying with the rules and the laws.
And then also their boards are not democratically elected, so there's no accountability to the community that they serve. And so, I don't necessarily have a position as what you're asking, but I do think that we need to address the fact that we have essentially privately run schools with public money that don't have accountability, and we need to make sure, especially if that's taking money away from our public school system, that we are investing in our public schools.
And also, some teachers have raised concerns about your pension system. A lot of these charter schools are not paying into CalSTRS. they 401ks and that kind of thing there. So your pension system is under threat. The state teachers pension system,
the pension system has eaten into potential raises that we could have gotten. There's what we're calling in Berkeley a sustainability crisis. In San Francisco and Oakland, it's a serious crisis of unfilled jobs, of vacancies. And we know that teachers cannot afford to keep the jobs that they love. And part of that is just the lack of raises that we've received, especially recently. And I think that we need more funding so teachers and classified staff can actually, work and live in the communities that they serve. So so much of our time is spent outside of our duty day doing work with our students. Yeah. And the further and further we live, we have teachers that are completely leaving the East Bay.
Well, how can a teacher afford to live in the Bay Area these days? With the price of housing and that kind of thing.
Yeah, what you have is you have a lot of trouble recruiting new teachers, young people that are fresh out of school. They get hired and they're excited, and then they realize, that they can't find somewhere to live. And
so there's a social crisis.
Yeah, and then also, the other side of this is we have teachers that want to start families, they may be in some shared housing situation with roommates, and, they get to a certain age where they say, I want to live on my own, move in with somebody, and we actually lose a lot of teachers that are at this other point in their lives. They're not brand new teachers. They're people that the school district has invested in, that are great, that are part of their community, and we see more and more of these people having to leave. You're basically one eviction away or one rent hike away from having to leave the area, because it's not like you can just go move to a different place in Oakland, or it used to be if you couldn't afford Berkeley, there was other places to go.
So it's a lot
East Bay crisis.
It's a lot of stress then.
Yeah, and then we can't serve our students the way we want to. We don't want to be worried about making the next rent payment. We want to make sure that our focus is on our jobs.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for joining us on WorkWeek Radio, and good luck.
Great to be here. Thank you.
We hope that this is a successful struggle, because education is at risk.
Yeah, I think that this is a great step in that struggle.
Okay, thank you for joining us. And you're listening to KPFA WorkWeek Radio, and we're going to take a music break and then go to our next guest. Okay.